Welcome back, folks. All right, it is now officially the earnings stream. We are going to be talking about AMD, so that is front and center. We're also going to be talking about SMCI. This one is going to be releasing as well, but AMD is going to be the talk of the town here. So we have on the top right our 1 minute chart for AMD. We can see a little bit of a sell off into the close, but starting to see that pressure building. Are we going to be off to the races and have a really strong earnings, or is this going to signal a potential canary in the coal mine for the very, very strong sector or market leading semiconductor sector? So a few things we can talk about. First off, in the bottom right, we have our hourly on AMD. I'm going to pull this full screen for y'all just to paint the picture a little bit here. Where are we in the broader AMD story? We're actually going to go all the way back to a weekly chart because we have some things to talk about. Essentially, we are playing ball above the previous all-time highs. This is very, very important, guys. We are finding price acceptance over this previous spike up, this previous wick high that represented a crazy price for AMD. Oh, if at any time in 2024 you said, "Hey, I sold my AMD over 220," you would be a god. Now, if you sold your AMD over 220, you got robbed because we are catching that. That is flipping to support. We are trying to push on higher into a new range. What could be the start of this push to a new range? Well, earnings is definitely going to be a big part of it. So on the weekly here, we are seeing nice compression. On the daily, we are seeing a little bit overheated, but we did achieve the new all-time high. Then we came back down right into that 21 moving average. That yellow line there caught us really nicely 3 days in a row, pushing up beautifully. So we are starting to see a little bit of a build out here in terms of rising support. So the structure is looking pretty good for a push higher. Zooming on back out to our grid. We're going to keep an eye on AMD. Let me double check on the time for the earnings results.
Yeah, so far it looks like we held that 20 SMA on the daily chart. Intraday,
Welcome, by the way, Joe. Sorry, I wasn't
yeah,
sure if you were going to be on camera this session. Good to have you in.
yeah, yep,
How you
I'm
doing
here
today?
with you. Doing good, doing good.
Awesome. I thought I was going to be rambling to myself. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I've got a compatriot here. Perfect. So
I do what I can, Steve. I do what I can.
you do a little bit of everything. So just going over AMD, their expectations. So revenue, the street is expecting $9.67 billion in revenue. For earnings per share, we're looking at $1.32 there. These are the expectations. We'll see if we can beat those. That's definitely going to be the talk of the town. The implied move is around 8% up or down. So let's see. 8% is going to put us, let me pull up my other chart, figure that out really quickly, see what our likely targets are going to be. So 8% from our 242 close would put us at roughly 260. So 260 side, 8% to the downside is going to be looking like a retest of our 50-day moving average. That would be around 222, 223. So that's kind of the general range that we are going to be playing in here. SMCI is seeing a decent little push up here. This is a 5-minute chart in the lower bottom left. We're keeping an eye on this one as well. Seeing a decent climb into their earnings release. So I'm going to look and make sure that they haven't dropped yet. But I think that that's going to be in the next minute or so. So that's probably going to be the first to come out. I'm going to double check on this AMD time. Joe, anything that's jumping out to you?
Not so much just yet. I had to restart my Trader Evolution software real quick there. So
No worries, no worries. So yeah, we have We do have some other semiconductors as well reporting today. Let me pull up the full list. I believe SWKS, as well as, what am I missing? Let's pull up the full list. So we have our earnings whispers list here. AMD, SMCI. By the way, estimates for SMCI there are going to be 49 cents per share for the earnings, and then revenue is going to be 10.43 billion there. So we also do have some earnings in the fiber optics data center kind of space with the Lumentum Holdings, LITE, as well as Lumen Technologies, LUMN. We can keep an eye on those, as well as Chipotle. So Chipotle is going to be decently important for our oh, let's see, did SMCI come out here? We are seeing a little bit of shake and bake. Maybe not. Okay, so I'm also going to pull up our CMG because I think that's going to be pretty interesting. All right, so a decent array of names to watch here. Joe, real quick, I'm going to try to find the starting time for SMCI because that one's kind of jumping the most in my book here. Looks like it might be close. Okay, it looks like their call is going to be 5 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm only seeing after the bell. I'm not seeing an exact time. So we just got to wait for that.
Yeah, nice little push to 30 and a half there.
Yeah, and I think there's just going to be some shaking and baking around this 30 level, just kind of squeezing above just a little bit. Then the bears step back in, and probably if it gets too far below that, bulls are going to kind of buy it back, kind of pinning it to that pivot until we get news that can push it away. That's probably where the most volume's traded on it. We're seeing a little bit of just yeehaw right on back down to where it closed the day. Actually, a little bit lower there. So yeah, at the 29.50 handle there, still waiting for any news, not seeing anything. Double checking that wasn't anything released on SMCI. Okay, pulling up Twitter real quick just to show the kind of earnings environment overall. So earnings moves definitely seems like there's been some punishment going on, and we're going to keep an eye on we're going to keep an eye on them here. There's really not much going on quite yet. Sorry, I'm scanning for some information on the other side.
Yep, all good.
A little distracted here. So I am just wondering on this hourly chart on AMD if we can get a good reaction. Does this constitute good enough structure for like a pull down and kind of like a higher low? That's what I'm kind of considering, because I thought that maybe we could dip in just a little bit deeper, but as I look again, this is kind of the big, deep V-shaped pocket, and we did just transact that barely here this afternoon. So that might be valid enough for this this on the hourly here to be the higher low, and then we can just power out of this with a good earnings. Obviously, TA matters much less when you have a big binary event coming up, but I just kind of like to see how it looks, how it would look framed on a chart if this was a bottom. And I think that this could be valid. The big push down, then the higher low here, and then just the power up out of this kind of trend line that we are still trading under. You could draw the trend line here as well, and yeah, just coiling under it here. So waiting on any data here. So
yeah, I'm just
it's
checking.
kind of a game of like it feels like, oh wow, all right. So CMG, they just released. We can talk about that here. definitely heavy out of the gate here. We have price pushing down into the sub 37 handle, 36 even and counting, pushing even lower here. So I'm assuming they missed. I'm looking for those exact numbers.
That's CMG, right?
Yeah, CMG. Still not seeing anything on Twitter, at least yet.
What a
So while we watch this in the top left, I'm going to switch to a higher time frame chart for CMG in the bottom left here, because I think it's worth noting where we are in the bigger picture. So we did completely fill that earnings gap, and we are just kind of hanging out. We were hanging out trying to find traction above it, but we couldn't. We did reclaim the 21 day. So it was kind of like this ominous, like, well, which way could it could go either way. You know, you could frame it from the bull side or the bear side, and that often will happen into these earnings prints where, you know, the chart could go either way, which you know, makes sense because the earnings data could send it over the edge in either direction. We are seeing the big push down into this 35 handle, just tagged it and caught for now, but this is really coming back and cleaning up some of these old imbalances all the way down here from early December at this point. So it's kind of playing in this big window where it had gapped previously. So it had tested the top of this gap. Now it's coming all the way back down and testing the bottom. So this is an area of interest if you're a long-term investor. But man, not a strong response and still dropping. No buyers yet. AMD, meanwhile, doing a whole lot of nothing. Let's double check and make sure SMCI is doing the same.
Yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
checking some of the tickers on our trading platform for our challenge, making sure that they work while you talk there. But
Yes.
yeah, that's a nice drop in CMG.
Mm-hmm. And these don't move that much. So when you get a $5 drop like this in a $40 name, when it's usually very slow moving, definitely some money to be made there if you were bearish. SMCI, we are getting a little bit of just this larger, it's like flagging in a larger range now between 30.50 and 29.50. So a full dollar range that's been flagging in for 5 minutes or for 15 minutes now in these big 5-minute candles. So definitely a big move brewing. And, you know, it really makes me think to these chips. I mean, I don't know. How are you feeling? Do you think there's room in the tank on these? I kind of don't want to be bearish on them. It seems really
Yeah.
scary proposition overall.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is just some profit taking.
Yeah, we got some boys in here for SMCI. Definitely interesting in terms of the setup. So it seems like we're kind of walking this tightrope, and there's so much dependent on Nvidia in general that any companies that are, you know, really hinging on their guidance, we're just in this kind of game between the bullish and bearish narratives. You know me, I'm always tend to lean bullish, and I want to pull back and look at these higher time frames too, because if we can just see any kind of stabilization of these narratives for a chart like SMCI, there's so much room to the upside. We're just kind of trying to find a reason to stop selling. And if we can find that reason to stop selling, then these names can get repriced very rapidly. So I'll never claim to be the number one guy to talk to about these narratives and how they can kind of change. I'm more here to say, all right, this is what other more informed participants are doing. People, you know, who work on Wall Street, people who work in the industry. This is how they're positioning. I can see how they're positioning on the chart, and that's going to help inform my my opinions on where these guys are going. So we have some large consolidation. There's a lot of kinetic energy building up on this chart. You know, we have a nice potential low being put in. We push up, we come back down into that same zone marked out in this rectangle. We are finding buyers there again going into this pivotal point. If we look at volume 2, after this initial big surge up, big push, about twice the average volume, we've just been seeing volume kind of falling off and consolidating. We are starting to see it test back into above average as it kind of redips into that range. So I like to see that being where the volume comes back into play. But really, it's all eyes on this 31 handle. You can see on the right side that big blob there. That's going to be our top of our volume shelf. And that's going to be the line in the sand that's really going to set this powder keg off if we're going just like that. So I always want to believe in the narrative turnaround of plays like this, even though, it can be considered kind of a scammy company. I mean, that just can be more potential for those shorts to get backed off and really get ran out of town here. And if we zoom out, we can see how it looks if a narrative gets repriced on one of these. You can get really, really big moves, 28 to 66, 31 to 60 there. And that's not even counting the initial insane move that squeezed massively. So just because this name has so much potential in that regard, it's always worth watching on earnings. And it's a fun one, guys. It's a fun one to play. I'm not playing it this time around, but I have a few times in the past. And it usually is worth your time. You get really big moves. So initially out of the gate here, we are red. Did we get earnings while I was yapping? Let me refresh my feed. To prices not seen since 2 hours ago. An hour. All right, big wick up. So we have quite a wide spread here.
There you go.
Let's see. Are you saying anything?
I'm not seeing
whoa,
anything yet.
AMD. All right, guys. Working through my Twitter feed here. So immediate reaction was bearish. It looks like the earning EPS was 1.53 versus the 1.32 expected. And it looks like revenue was 10.27 billion versus the 9.66 expected. So it seems like expectations were pretty high if we're seeing that sell off. So expected move to the downside was 8% down to this 222-ish area. We are about halfway there so far, testing and seeing if we can find buyers at 230. Yeah, that's looking like a double beat here, but getting punished. Not seeing anything for SMCI. They were just reacting to the AMD earnings there. That makes sense. Chipotle trying to stabilize off the 35 handle, by the way, but still nothing really notable there. AMD is definitely going to be the biggest thing of interest on my screen here as we lose the 230 handle. We're going to draw that out real quick. There's that 230 level that we are playing with here. So let's see if we can reclaim. There's definitely going to be some resting buyers here, but overall a little bit sketchy. I'm going to check out where we are in terms of the hourly chart here. See, this level of interest is going to be 225.90 is going to be that last swing low. That's where we really want to hold. I'm going to draw that out as well. I love how Trader Evolution has the degree lines whenever you're drawing a trend line, so you can easily make it 0 degrees. All right.
Yeah, I like that.
Seeing this is kind of a little kind of flat top area where we should have support being stepping in here. Pulling back to a little bit further. I just want to see the bottom of the previous range. Yeah, down here. We're just, man, it's the last line of defense here. If this doesn't hold, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the bottom of the candle on a 4-hour chart as well.
Mhm.
Testing, it's got to test that 220. I mean, if it gets down to 225 50s, this might be in trouble for some more lower.
I wonder if
But
this is a chance to buy here under 230, just with how it is holding that higher low, and it is a double beat. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything worrisome yet. That's a 40% year over year increase on EPS. Revenue's up 34% year over year. I mean, what was the street looking for here? I guess this is the question, right? To me, it seems like 230 under 230 here is probably a decent place to get involved long term. I would consider this a potential area where it does look like we're trying to find some buyers, and it would make logical sense. It would also be a very logical place to stop out if we lose that 226-ish area. So not the worst place in the world to take a little shot here. Just my personal opinion. So SMCI, this one's looking real constructive. A nice flag, while it just eats that tank, that AMD tank candle, just ate it and loaded back up, and now it's trying to flag out here. So we'll be keeping an eye on the SMCI results as well as we start looking through some of these AMD numbers. Yeah, currently down about 5.5% on AMD, down 1350. Yeah, it seems like really solid earnings to me, but it's all about expectations. So if you were buying that dip under 230, it does look like we're starting to catch there. We'll see if it's going to hold, but that's just a logical area to define risk if you are either day trading the earnings or potentially looking to pick up some AMD for the long term port there. I do believe in the company. I believe in Lisa Su. I think that there's more of a chance that expectations were just a little bit too high. And this is just a little bit of a repricing before a bigger move higher in the next year or so. So I think that they're not a bad place to have a little bit of cash. You can see on this monthly chart, I think that we want to push up and at least tag this trend line. I think 300 is going to be a big magnet overall. And if we entertain the possibility of a cup and handle, this being a really tight handle on this larger cup, then we can start looking at some extensions, which would be pretty appealing in terms of percentage gains. We were talking, 320, but really I'm looking at this 375 type handle because I just think that this whole move could very easily just be, this whole previous 5 years of price action could easily just be a larger base when we look at some of the outperforming chips and what they've done since that time. I mean, geez, if AMD can figure it out, then they have the potential to try to tap into some of this parabolic type price action. Now that they've broken through multi-year bases, just like Broadcom did all the way back down here. Kind of a similar look, right about in this area. Not saying they're similar companies, but you never know. Never know where the market could dump money into if the narrative does have legs. So AMD still pushing up off of this 230 buy zone that we mentioned. Now, big surge up to that 235. I wonder, is there potential for a red to green? Got a lot of work to do, but
yeah, a lot of work to do. But I like the fact that it's bounced right off that pivot point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives me some hope that bulls are choosing their spot, and as long as this low does hold, it's given me hope. But again, got to play what we see, and the big test is going to be that 50% retest of the initial flush. So that's going to look like the 238.60. 238.60. As you can see, bears did step back in there. So we have just 1 second left, and that candle did close right there with a big top wick. So still technically bullish, but not as bullish as if we could close over, especially the 50% of that candle. So meanwhile, SMCI, we're still waiting to get that headline. Nothing doing there. Just going to keep scouring my feed, seeing what else I find. What's of interest here? Yeah, I'm just looking around. I'm seeing a lot of other people with their targets for AMD at that 320 as well. So that makes sense to me that that would be an area of interest. I'm liking this attempt of bulls to eat the wick here as well. Always a good look when you have a big push up,
Mhm.
you come back down, and then the bears they fumble. They can't get a push under that previous candle, and they're just starting to get backed up, backed up, backed up. If they can lose that previous point where they came in and slammed down, which seems like they're fast on their way to losing, then you can see those start to close out really fast and get a nice squeeze type move. So it looks like we will be getting that. Congratulations if you did get in under that 230. Usually this is the only way that I really play earnings. I don't really like predicting what's going to happen because it's hard. You could say,
Mhm.
hey, I'm really confident that AMD is going to double beat, and then you could start working in your direction for half a minute, and you feel very smart, and then you're like, what in tarnation? What just happened? And so for me, it's much easier to wait for kind of stabilization to show where essentially where the buyers are going to step in after the new information has came in. So after the new information's hit the tape and started to be digested, and this is the kind of the first line of, hey, actually, I think that this is an overreaction selling this much. I think probably this is going to be a good place to buy longer term, or at least for a swing into the next week. And that can kind of be where the selling gets capped and we get these kind of pushes up. So hopefully we can get the push over that previous wick. You can see how they are still trying to hold the line there.
Yeah.
That level is going to be, oh, well, right at the 235 handle. So that makes sense. I think that we're going to see a little bit of tightening. And what I want to see as a bull is higher low, no lower than 231, really. I wouldn't want to see us lose any more of that push up than like that. Does look like bulls or bears still are in control, though, in that they could hold that wick. So that's always a bummer to see when they get so close to taking it back, taking that level back, the bulls, and then they just kind of give it up again. So we'll see if this higher low can form. We're going to keep an eye on there. Meanwhile, SMCI still waiting on those results. And any others that are worth talking about? Let's see.
See, we had ENPH.
Do have ENPH. Is my least favorite of the solar companies. They are up. Okay, we do have a bullish reaction to earnings here. I'll pull that up. So estimates were 1.32 for earnings and 9.65 billion for revenue. They reported a double beat, 1.53 for earnings and 10.27 billion for revenue there. That's a 34% growth. That's a 16% surprise beat there. So they are getting rewarded for that. Currently trading up about, what is that? About $2 from the closing price there. So we're going to watch that 40 handle on end phase. There's probably going to be a decent amount of sellers there stepping in. Meanwhile, AMD trying their best to hold that previous level. Oh man, they are back to the 230. We got to see if the buyers are still here at the 230. That was that initial buy level. So far, not looking too encouraging unless it can catch right here and be the potential higher low that we would be looking for. You really don't want to see that kind of velocity, though. You want to see a little bit more gradual on that. But earnings can really ramp things up, make these moves faster and spicier. SMCI still hanging out, forming a nice base, still waiting for those numbers there. I'm curious about how these fiber companies, the Light and the Lumen, are doing. We have Light Lumentum Holdings here up nicely, about $50 from 430 all the way up to 480. They briefly flirted with 500 or a few bucks short, but to me that looks like just positive gamma price action where we surge up to the magnet at 500 100, but as we get very close to it, it does act as a bit of a rejecting force short term. So nice move there, and we would expect that to continue into the next couple days or week. And how about our guy Lumen? Lumen Technologies, these guys down. Okay. Down initially, rebounding. Looks like Theta Gang's going to win on this guy. I do have a small position here. It is now red. That's the way she goes. So I'm going to watch and see if this is something that I want to cut. If it can't reclaim this 850 or so this week, that's too bad. I was trying to play the laggard here in the space, and it seems like I probably should have just stuck with the big boy in light. Seems like the winner keeps on winning. What else is going on? Amgen, AMGN.
AMGN.
Did they already release? Yes, they did. Okay, so that is going to be double beat there. Double beat there. They, let's see, had 5.29 in earnings compared to the 4.76 estimate. Revenue came in at 9.87 billion over the 9.47 billion estimate there. So modest beat, but a beat nonetheless. They are essentially flat. Not much to talk about there. SMCI barcode and waiting for a move. AMD, they are just not popping off of this level. So we'll see if the resting buyers under 230 can step back in, or if we just kind of dribble on down and push down lower, losing this previous day range and slide on down to that projected expected move of about minus 8%. That would be the 223 handle. So bulls want a double bottom, but it is not looking very encouraging unless they can get that push up pretty darn soon. You want to see those resting buyers start to actually show some force as the sellers tire themselves out. But so far,
Yeah, that first initial reaction to the, you know, lows of a couple days ago, 235.50s.
yeah,
It makes sense that they're, that I would test that area, pull back from there. From here we can get a double bottom. Uh, you know, that could make a difference. But we shall see. It's pretty heavy so far.
Yeah. So we're getting some chatter in chat there. Yeah. Super micro. I'm not 100% sure on the time here. I was going off the earnings whispers, but they do weird timing. So I'm gonna see if we're not gonna be waiting around till 10 for that. But that would be the only other one that is really worth talking about that hasn't released yet. I think Electronic Arts as well, but I don't know how much market wide implications there really are there. We can look at the higher time frame chart, just see if it could potentially spark an interesting move for position traders, for swing traders. Oh wow, EA, so they are rocking and rolling. I didn't realize that they had broken out of such a long term range here, and then consolidating relatively tightly here, very tightly over the past couple months. Looks like an acquisition or something almost. So I don't know. Don't see much of a potential trade here, and yeah, don't see market moving implications. So pretty easy to skip on that one there. Going on down the list, yeah, Take Two as well. You have any interest in the video game stocks? You trade?
The only time I ever take them is, kind of looking in around September, and
Yeah,
I just play the long term on them and start to, buy shares on dips and sell after the new year.
understandable.
You know, but I haven't played them in a couple of years, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's just other areas that really draw me when I think about like the tech space, or even like yeah, any kind of subsector. I don't know. There's areas that I'm so much more interested in playing.
Yeah, the only time I really take more interest is if there's going to be, like a new series of console being released at the same time. That seems to start driving them during the
Yeah,
holiday time. So that's kind of my play on those.
No, I like having those kind of seasonal plays that you can just kind of pull out a certain time of year, and often they can be relatively easy, and they're kind of a fun breakup or mix up from the usual. But it's just good to have kind of build up those playbooks about like when those kind of plays can work. We are also seeing a nice red to green reaction on Amcor here, AMCR. So just really I don't know. I'm seeing relatively subdued earnings reactions across the board here. Nothing too crazy. A lot of moves getting mean reverted off the initial reaction. Not AMD. That one did make the move lower here. So we are now in the danger zone, I would say. On the hourly chart here, we have some room to fall after losing this last swing low. Unless we can do a undercut and rally off of that. Looking like we're probably going to want to negotiate the next low down here at 221. There is a decent spike of volume at the 225 that we're going to be kind of testing and eating into here. But in general, not the best look for AMD, especially on a beat. And how's the index holding up through all this? Doesn't care, doesn't care. So that's one good part at least. I just want to make sure that SPY isn't gonna just fall off the face of the earth like it did for most of today. I do think that at the end of the day we did find some decent bottoming price action and structure there. So hopefully we reach down enough under that 685, but it's just kind of sketchy here. Kind of sketchy candle overall. Do you have any big feelings on indices here? Do you think we're just waiting for some other big earnings this week, or how do you look at this price action?
Yeah, I just think it's waiting for the earnings coming out with Google coming up tomorrow. We still have some big names coming up.
Yeah,
So
yeah, the Google, the Amazon, those are the ones that I'm watching most closely.
yeah, I'm looking forward into tomorrow.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. That I think that as long as we can kind of survive here, we're just kind of waiting out these big ones, making sure that we are not that we don't there aren't any like landmines that we're dodging here. And if
Yep.
all looks good, I think that we are setting the stage for another push up. I'm always open to the possibility of this, us not getting the rally kind of failing, and then actually having to reset longer term and it taking a few months. I'm open to that, and that would kind of look like to me a push down to whoops, wrong tool there. Where's my normal line? There we go. So kind of just a push down to somewhere, one of these swing lows, to kind of just relieve the pressure if we can't just straight break out of this kind of rising pattern. Because whenever I see a rising pattern like this, it's a question to me of whether we can just hold this momentum and really get a powerful move, or whether we need to kind of break above and then reject and push below and kind of reset this whole structure. So that would kind of look like 675 for me if we do lose this 680. So I think the 680 to 675 is going to be the area of interest if we can't manage to hold this 50-day. What I will say is that every single time we've retraced to the 50-day, this dark blue line, and then showed that we have buyers, it's been a good chance to get involved. So this one, once we reclaimed it here, really nice move up. Same here. This one did not transact the past, 4 days ago. So the fact that we did transact today and found those buyers, it almost feels like that was what we were waiting for the past couple days. And now we might have a little bit of room to push up. I'm going to zoom into an hourly too. Sorry about that. So this kind of downtrend line, we overshoot it. We couldn't make the new high, but we can't make the new low either. So we're just consolidating higher lows, lower highs, and in this holding pattern here, which makes me think that the earnings are going to be pretty important. So that's why we are watching closely this week. Meanwhile, AMD still just hanging out under that 230 until it breaks above 230. Can't really touch it. If it loses 230, I mean, we can see a little bit of few more dollars of downside, but really moves kind of been made in terms of the average true range. So that's where we're at in terms of the AMD there. Let's check in with Chipotle. Chipotle coming back nicely. So we mentioned that 35 being an area of interest, definitely found buyers. And they did double beat. It just wasn't a big one. So they their estimates were 0.24 for earnings and 2.98 billion for revenue there, and they barely beat earnings, putting in 0.25 and then came in actually in line. So not a beat on revenue, 2.98 billion, exactly in line there. Okay, guys. Not very riveting price action today, I will admit. SPY doing a whole lot of nothing. AMD trying its best. So we do have a little bit of interest here just in terms of we had this kind of level being lost. Now we're trying to reclaim it. If we do, we could look at a potential fake breakdown. But the general setup that I like is the push down, the look up to form the middle of that W and then the higher low. Once we reject that, it has to kind of reform into a whole new pattern here. And just kind of hanging out.
Yep.
Seeing what we see here. I don't know, Joe. Anything else standing out to you this week that's going to be worth really keeping an eye on? We have that Google, that Amazon. Besides that, nothing jumping out to my mind.
Yeah, nothing jumping out right now. I mean, we've got just a few of our stocks that we're watching with Trade the Pool and the earnings challenge. So, but other than that, with the overall earnings, AMD today just kind of taking a dump.
Yeah, it just took the wind out of the sails of everything I'm watching here. It's just really kind of keeping us in that compression mode with SPY, and we're kind of keep waiting for whatever might be the trigger, the catalyst to send us in the breakout here. Pull up a daily chart. And
Yeah,
it's just consolidation, What is going to send us? Is it going to be the Amazon and the Google? It was not the Apple. It was not the Meta. Wasn't the Tesla. So what are we waiting for? Could be Nvidia as well. So it's just a good time to take
SMCI
some
is just
starters in
chopping around
position.
right now.
Sorry, what was that?
SMCI is just chopping around right now.
Yeah.
This is an area where people don't know what's going to go on. So it's up and down. It's a guess territory.
My
I
favorite.
mean, yeah.
So
I mean,
just
it's
pulling
fine.
up.
It's fine to take your bet and stick with it, but you might end up getting chopped out all over the place. And then, but then again, I'm coming from more of the small cap arena. I wouldn't like this action. I wouldn't be necessarily trading it.
Mhm.
But that's a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing. I'd like to see. I'd like to see it choose a direction.
That's
You know,
exactly what I was about to say. Like for me, this is just in the basket of things that I'm waiting to see if it can kind of set up and develop for me. So it's in this bottoming range, and it's so easy to try to have an opinion when really it's best to just kind of sit and watch for these ones when they're still developing these kind of bases, and it can take a long time for these to really get ready to go. So there's the potential risk in buying something that's going to go down, of course, but there's also the potential opportunity cost in buying something that might trade sideways or in a range for months and months. So for me, I look for post earnings gap setups on names like this, where maybe we break out, put in a nice move. I don't know, say we can take this swing high out here up to 35 or so. Then what I'd love to see is a tightening after the earnings, usually like 3 to 5 days, or that can give you some entry points there after we've kind of already established the direction. And people always ask me, well, don't you feel bad buying something higher, significantly higher than where you were looking at it? And I go, well, no, because I don't really care about the actual price. I just care about how easy of a trade it's going to be from my entry to my target, you know? So if I think it's going to be a straighter shot move to capture this leg right here after it's already done its thing and set up and proven itself over a previous swing high, then I'm much more interested in taking that, even if it, you know, is me buying the same stock at 34 instead of at 30, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, and I'd like to see, I mean, support right in this area. I mean, if we're looking months back, I mean, or years back, I mean, this is a area that's, been tested before, back in 2020, 23. But then, then we're talking about a long, long time frame. Uh, Came back in 2024, retested that area, dipping down to 16. Continues to test this general area overall. So if it can
Yeah.
support and hold on a smaller time frame, we've got a downtrend. Uh, right, if it can hold this 30 area and start to put in higher lows, break the downtrend line to the upside.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of room to move. I mean, if we look back in November, I mean, where it came from, I mean, it's got a lot of room to move back up for price.
Yeah.
Um, I was taking a look at chat. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here, guys. I see one question out there. What's that black eyeglasses, sir? Um, yeah, I had retinal tear in my eye. So yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like too. All the eyesight went like within one day. All of a sudden, I went blind basically in the eye. So yeah, I'm working with one eye here, trying to move around the screens, clicking things. I'm tipping my coffee over or beer or whatever it is, and it's not not doing too good. It sucks pretty bad. But regardless of that, we appreciate you being here, and thanks for being patient with us. And
About
with your,
the blind leading the blind there.
yeah, exactly. What the hell is that?
Oh
Right?
man. Well, we appreciate you hanging out with us, Joe. I know it's
It's
it's a little tough. It's a little tough when you have half your peripheral vision there and you're trying to do four different jobs, but it's always nice to
yeah,
have
it's
your company.
pretty ridiculous because your spatial awareness, your depth perception isn't there. So like when you reach for stuff, you're bumping into it.
Oh no.
anyways,
I imagine.
anyways, it is what it
Unfortunate
is.
as is. So SMCI, somebody's mentioning here, Timothy Tate. It is. Wait, did it move? Do I need to watch that? I'm hearing a let's go. Are we just excited in general, or did something happen? In general, somebody's mentioned. Okay, yeah, doing nothing. You guys are baiting me here. That's fair. So somebody mentioned a potential valuation of $60, and while I'm not super confident on the fundamentals, simply because I haven't looked into them, what I can say is that I am seeing the potential on a charting basis for a retest of that kind of zone. Uh, where was it on the weekly? I thought it was pretty clear. Yeah. So on the weekly here, we are definitely in this much larger range. And something that I thought was interesting is I was seeing a little bit of similarities to the rising pattern. See this uptrend line that failed and what we're seeing on SPY. So it's not exactly the same. But in general, we had this kind of structure where when it failed, it needed to kind of reset, pull back into the previous base under this 50%, this red line here, and into the golden pocket of the range. And once it did that, then it was ready to kind of form a higher low. So I wonder if potentially we're seeing a similar kind of bottoming structure. And this would be a nice time for it to start working off of this earnings result. So if it were to do this, then the midpoint would be that 38 and the upside targets would be essentially that 60 handle. So I could definitely see a reason. I could see many universes where this thing trades back up into this range, this upper rectangle here, before it kind of even makes its decision about whether this is a legitimate company or not. It could
Mhm.
it could be fraudulent and still work its way back up here before eventually going bankrupt. Or it could be the start of it turning a corner, flipping that narrative. But what's really going to be hard for it to do is to break this all-time high kind of doom loop, as I like to call them, where it's just literally a downtrend line from the all-time highs. And this is going to be a very, very heavy resistance for it to break through. And often when it's really ready to make those kind of narrative shifts, this is the level that's going to need to snap first. Good example of this is going to be Intel. And this one was a tough trade until it wasn't. How did you know? Well, it broke this downtrend line, this doom loop line, and that signaled the bottom. So it broke above and then it washed out pretty severely, but it did hold the retest of this downtrend line, and then it was just smashing up from there. So you'll see this just about in any bottoming formation. What's another one? Maybe Meta's a good example.
Yeah, that's a good example on INTC there.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember that one because I was in it. On the mega cap, sometimes it's less extreme, but you will see the same kind of thing where, okay, we broke this downtrend line. It's definitely less notable on these ones. I know a good example, Moderna. So this is one where it can be really notable. Maybe not the best example, but just it can take a while. Maybe, I think Novavax might be an even better example here, but of basically of names that have been really, really just bottomed out for a long time. You're looking for these long-term downtrend lines to kind of break, and that can show where they can kind of find life and find volume again. So here's a good example where once it kind of broke this downtrend line that it had set a few times, so price pops up, it tries to reclaim for multiple weeks there, washes underneath, but once it reclaims, it starts to squeeze. So I think that this one's going to be starting its bottoming process, and this is going to be essentially the right side of a larger base. And it might take a while, it might take a couple months, but eventually when it does catch on, this thing's going to probably double. So these can take a long time. You have to be really patient, but worth keeping them on your longer term watch list. And I think that's where kind of SMCI is living here for me now. But since we are approaching this earnings, definitely worth bringing to the forefront. Oh, SMCI, moon in the past minute. I'm sorry, guys. All right. We have a nice push up here. Let me double check my earnings results. See if I got any update.
Today we're doing a complete fin.
Okay, we got yeah, 30 seconds ago we got results. All right, SMCIC's third quarter net sales at least 12.3 billion, estimated 10.25 billion. They see front year net sales at least 40 billion, saw at least 36 billion. All right, let's see what else is going on here. It is a double beat. I'm gonna pull the numbers up on screen for y'all. Actual is 0.69, expected is 0.49. That is 17% year-on-year increase. So that's going to be a 40% beat on earnings per share and a 22% beat on revenue there. Congratulations, SMCI Bulls. Let's see what the implications are on a technical perspective. We are through that 32.5. I'm going to pull up an hourly chart on the right here. So we're starting to play ball. We want to see what happens when we get to 33.79. That's going to be the next area of interest where sellers could step back in a significant way. Nice. We got some action on the call here. I was expecting to just fall asleep for the past 10 minutes here, but all right. So good, strong push up for now. We want to see if we can hold. We are retesting the previous swing high from a couple days ago, about a week ago. This is going to be at 32.26. I want to see if we can continue to be constructive over there. That 32.26 is essentially the pivot of the past 5 minutes. That's where the first seller stepped in. It looks very strong, like we're just digesting through those before progressing up to that next swing high. And we want to see if that can continue the momentum. So now that we've kind of checked in on the hourly, I'm going to pull back to the daily on this bottom right here for SMCI, just to remember that we are so early if we are right. If this is the start of this bullish bottoming action here, we would be breaking out of this consolidation zone, which we can see there's the spread, this little light horizontal level. We're clearly over this downtrend line. We are working our way up and trying to run these stops here and here. And then we'd be running the next set of stops here and here. So those are no insignificant gains already. If we can work our way back up there, that would be, I mean, heck, a $5 gain on a $30 stock, nothing to sneeze at. So we want to see if this progression can hold going into the next week as well. I think SMCI bulls might be in for a good couple of weeks here.
Yeah, and I see big 8% move.
Not too shabby. This 31.22 volume shelf, this is what I'm looking at. If we do need to lose this previous pivot at the 32.28, then that's the area where I want to see the bulls continue to show aggression. It's been a really nice volume shelf there, building out over the past week, and I want to see that being kind of our backboard if we can't find an initial continuation bid right now. So not too shabby. AMD doesn't care at all. Does SMH care much? I don't know how the weights are. Doesn't look like it's a big deal. Check in with SOX as well.
Yeah, Santiago Soto, 1969 says, and SMCI to the moon.
To the moon. Let's go, baby. All right. So we did very briefly retest this volume shelf where it started, and we found initial buyers pretty quickly. I would expect it to retest a few more times, and I just want to continue to see that area when it's wicked down into find some support. Yeah,
yep.
not a crazy move, to be honest. So we got to just kind of keep this into perspective. We are still range bound. What I was really hoping to see was the surge over that 33.67. What we did get was an internal sweep of this 32.22, this mid blue line here. We're coming back down. So now we're kind of in wait and see mode. The area that really matters to me is this, see this white blob, this big volume shelf. So if we just draw it all the way back here, you can see that it's a pretty interesting area where was resistance. We broke above, reclaimed as support, and then it was kind of played with it a little here before losing it and trying to reclaim it here. So now we're right back into that level. Want to see if those buyers mean business or whether this was just a reach up to reshort. The one thing I don't like is that it couldn't breach this, but it did just kind of tap into this little up and then down area up here. So any ICT traders could consider this a bearish order block that we just tagged into and did show a pretty strong sell response from there. So just something to consider there on the hourly. Going back to our grid, we can see that you could definitely argue this is still a 1 minute flag and it's just moving fast. So, what I like to do there is just put the fib on this 1 minute just to kind of get my bearings for this smaller time frame move, because it is a big move even if it's happening fast. So as you can see, the 50% was at 31.01, and that did transact to the penny, did find buyers to the penny. Really all we need to see is a buying incentive if it goes on sale, essentially under this 50%. So often you can see a wick back into the high of the day. That would be 30.44, and that would also be a dip into this golden pocket. But for now, not the worst look ever that we are finding buyers right into that 50%. All right, so that is kind of what I'm seeing on SMCI, just in a holding pattern here after at least a bullish result. It's not a slam dunk, crazy out of the top of the range reaction that you'd like to see. But you know what? It could be the start of that if we find buyers into the next cash session.
Yeah, so I'd like to see this tomorrow. It makes sense that, hitting that, like I was looking at 33, 33.11, 33.10, 20s right there, because I've got a downtrend line on that right in that spot. So it rejected right near there.
Yeah. Okay.
But we'll see if it holds up there, in the short term.
Mm-hmm. To me, it definitely looks like it's starting to encounter mixed tape here. So it looks like it is not gonna just hard reject, or else it would have lost that 50% fib, but it's also not going to just break out the top here, go
Yeah.
crazy after hours like we saw on some of the moves. Not today, but in the past. So that's kind of the zone of interest, especially for tomorrow. You can watch this move high at the 32.87. It's going to be very interesting to see if we can reclaim that and start a kind of squeeze. Otherwise, I would say watch today's cash session high. That's going to be 30.74, I believe. Oh, wait. This is an hourly chart. I apologize. Where is that going to be? It will be 30.47. So that's going to be an area of interest as well. If we come back down to there, you want to see the buyers stepping in. When we are looking at areas of interest for tomorrow, for AMD, I think it's going to be a story of this 230 area. I don't like the reaction, so I think that it might be a game of popping above the 230, then finding a notable seller, and then you might get a push back below that 230 down to the 230, or I'm sorry, 222, 223 ish kind of handle down potentially to the 220. We could see kind of a washout to there if the earnings just are not getting rewarded and we can't find, more importantly, in my book, buyers under this 230. So to me, it's I'm not going to overthink it too much. I'm not going to try to like go crazy figuring out why we're selling AMD on a double beat, and just kind of think more holistically about, well, if this narrative turns around, then we'll see the support start to form under this pivot, and there will be plenty of time to buy on signs of strength into, under, or on a retest of that 230 level. So that's the area of interest for me. Meanwhile, SMCI is still holding really nicely after that initial push up. So I do want to see continuation there. Definitely better results than AMD. Joe, we are into the next hour here. So is there anything you want to say before we wrap up here? Any final words?
No, that's going to be it for today. Just look forward to tomorrow. We've got at the open as far as earnings. Let's see, what do we have? For trade the pool, we're before the bell. Uber, Lilly, CME, GEHC, GSK. And then obviously after the bell, it's we've got Google, Qualcomm, ARM. So those are going to be the ones that that we'll put up as far as voting in the Trade the Pool earnings challenge. So be on the lookout for that. If you're in our stream in the morning, we'll be posting the link in there, so you can, like I said, be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. Great stuff there. So yeah, a lot of healthcare implications for tomorrow's earnings, as well as more chips on deck, as well as those mega caps, those hyperscalers. So we'll have lots to talk about today. Yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how this week closes out, especially tomorrow, but also with the Thursday results there. So between the two, we're going to have plenty to talk about. We're going to start to see these narratives kind of coalescing and start to get a better view about where we're heading in the next month to quarter here. So great time to have some spare cash, have some dry powder, be ready to get some money involved if we do get some significant dips, or if we start turning a corner and really start to see the momentum trade come back into play. So either way, a great place to stay tuned is right here at Trade the Pool. Be sure to tune in with us tomorrow. We're going to be doing it bright and early. The gang's going to be all there in the morning for the full four-person panel for the Wednesday morning show. Then we're going to get on into the excuse me, the power hour into these earnings results as the day wraps up there. So be sure to tune in with us all day long. We'll have great content for you. We're going to wrap it up here. Joe, thank you so much for joining. And I think that'll just about do it. Anything else before we get on out?
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And I think that's a wrap.
Great. All right, guys, take care. We will be back and Adam tomorrow. Take care, y'all.
Take care, guys.